Hi, my name is Mitchell, and this is my presentation on camera traps and how they can increase participation and accessibility in ecology. Conducting field research in ecology often involves spending large amounts of money, time, and physical and mental energy. This is simply not possible for some individuals or organizations. One possible solution to this problem is to use a low-cost camera trap created from a Raspberry Pi computer. A camera trap is really any device that contains a camera and is programmed to automatically and remotely take videos or pictures at a set interval. Now, camera traps are commercially available and they range in price from as low as $30 up to close to $1,000. The less expensive camera traps typically use lower resolution cameras. They have capture times and they are typically constructed using lower quality materials. They also require the user to travel to the camera every so often to collect a memory card, and they're not able to upload data wirelessly. The more expensive models can do this. They have higher capture rates, they use higher resolution cameras, and they can upload data wirelessly to a server, which would not require someone to go out into the field and collect that data. Raspberry Pi computers are small single board computers that make an excellent base for a camera trap because they are inexpensive, small, they have a variety of input and output ports as well as USB, Ethernet, audio, and ports for a camera module. And while they're not powered by batteries per se, like many of the commercially available camera traps, they can be equipped to run off of battery. They run off of USB, which can use a high capacity USB charger to power the Raspberry Pi computer. So for my project, I wanted to build a camera trap that was similar in function to the really expensive camera traps that cost upwards of $1,000 sometimes, and I wanted to do this as cheaply as possible. So I chose to use a Raspberry Pi computer. I used a Raspberry Pi Model 2B, which is several generations older than the current model, which is, I believe, a 4. But they can still be obtained for very little money. The new ones cost $35, so the older ones can be obtained for much less than that. I constructed the physical camera trap module just with common household items. I used a click-top Tupperware container that I repurposed. I used some screws that I had to secure the Raspberry Pi into it. I cut holes in it with just a drill, and I attached the camera module to it using some wire. So this was constructed using inexpensive materials. The entire thing cost less than $50 to construct. Once I had finished building the actual camera module itself, I started work programming the Raspberry Pi computer. I installed a Linux-based operating system called Raspberry Pi OS onto the Raspberry Pi. It runs off of a micro SD card. I also uploaded a Python code that programs the Raspberry Pi to take pictures every second for 10 minutes. The Python code that I used to program the Raspberry Pi camera module also included a script that would stitch all of the photos that were taken into a short 30 frame per minute video that could be then looked over at the end of the picture taking process and could be paused on certain frames of interest. The code can be altered very easily, so theoretically it can take as many pictures as there is on the SD card. It could also upload the pictures to a separate USB stick, or if it's connected to the internet, it could upload that to a server or send that to a cloud-based storage system. All that would require is just slightly altering the original Python script. To test the practicality of this module that I built, I set it up right outside of my bedroom window, which is 2 stories above the ground. I spread some seeds on the grass and I pointed the camera outside the window, which was closed. There was also a screen in the window, and I set the camera up to run for 10 minutes, taking a picture every second. And I could see many birds, chipmunks, and squirrels frequenting that patch of food that I had set up. I could clearly count how many individuals visited the patch, and for some of the birds, I could even determine what species they were, even through the closed window with a screen. I hope to continue working on my Raspberry Pi camera module by adding additional components like temperature sensor, humidity sensor, pH sensor, as well as motion sensors that can automatically start and stop the Python code when it detects movement. These sensors cost between $5 and $30. I'm also very interested in trying this system out on capturing interactions between insects and hopefully a parasitoid insect host type of interaction. That would really be very powerful if this camera module could pick up such a small scale interaction compared to relatively larger scale animal movements like birds and squirrels. It would also be very interesting to see this be used in a aquatic environment as opposed to terrestrial. That type of application would definitely require a lot of altering to the case, making sure it's waterproof, and also getting some sort of battery or solar panel to power the Raspberry Pi through USB. I do hope to use this camera module system to develop a lesson plan module for course-based undergraduate research experiences. The process of actually building and programming the Raspberry Pi is, in my opinion, was very fun to do, and it affords students the ability to learn about 21st century data skills by working with the Python code and programming the Raspberry Pi. That concludes my presentation. Thank you so much for watching. If you're interested in seeing some more pictures of the Raspberry Pi camera trap module or some pictures taken by the camera trap, you can use this QR link here on the poster.